Hello friends, welcome to my channel. In today's session we are going to perform CRUD operations in ASP.NET Core, Razor Pages. This is the final output of this session. Here we have added one nav item to create the books and to see the books available in the database. Click on this books. Here we can see all the items are loaded from the database and displayed here. If you want to create any new book, you can click on this button to create a new book. Let me click on the create new book button. Here we can provide the title, description and author details to submit the data. Without providing any details, I am trying to save this data. Let me submit. So these validations are implemented here. If I add book title here, let me add. So now this error has been removed. So here we have implemented client side and server side validations, and let me add the book description. So this validation error message has been removed when we enter the description. So our client side validations are working perfectly, and let me choose author also. Now we filled all three columns. Let me submit the data. The data has been saved into the database, and here we are using Suite Alert to display the messages. Let me click on OK. So now the newly added book has been showed in the book list. Let me edit this data. Click on edit. Here I can change here. Let me update. Let me update this data. The book details are updated and the updated data has been binded to the book list. Also here we can delete the data. Let me click on this delete. Here we have disabled all the controls here. Since user is trying to delete this data, we no need to enable these text box controls. That's why we enable the read only property here, so that it will not allow user to modify the content. If user want to go back to the list, you can click on this back to list button, where it will be redirected to book list. Let me go back to the delete again. This time I'm going to delete the data. The data has been deleted and updated the book list here. Also here we have added bootstrap icons here in the UI. You can see plus and the edit, delete. So we added bootstrap icons here. For this session I'm going to use Visual Studio 2022. Let me create a new project here. Click on create a new project. Here I'm going to search for Razor Pages. Select the ASP.NET Core web app with Razor Pages. Click on next. Here I'm going to give my project name. This is my project name. I'm going to store this project inside this folder. Let me click on next. Here I'm going to use .NET Framework 9, which is latest version. I selected .NET 9. Click on create. Our project has been created. Here we are going to use Entity Framework code first approach to perform CRUD operations. For that I need to install few packages. Let me right click on the solution, go to the manage NuGet packages. Here package source I'll select as all. Let me go to the browse. Here I'm going to search for Entity Framework Core. Let me install Entity Framework Core here. Select the latest stable version. Click on install. Accept. It's installed. Then go to the SQL Server. We are going to use Microsoft SQL Server. We need to install Microsoft.entityframeworkcore.SQL Server. Also we are going to use the code first approach. For that we need tools also. Select the tools and install. Accept the license terms. All the required packages has been installed. Go to the Solution Explorer. Here I am going to create a folder to store all my DB entities. Let me add my books entity. I'm going to create one class for books model. Here I'm going to define properties. This will be ID and primary key. I'll create another property for book title. So I'm going to create these properties here. Also I'm going to make this book title as mandatory. So add with required data annotation. Description is not mandatory. Let me add author also mandatory. Also while displaying, I don't want to display this title as book title. Let me change the display column name for this property. Instead of book title, I can make it as book space title. That will be more meaningful while displaying in the UI. Let me add this as book description. Author, let it be. This is fine. Then I'm going to create another folder to store all my data access related objects. Let me create class here. I'll name it as my app DB context. This DB context is going to communicate between our application and the database server. This will be inherited from DB context. Select DB context, click on DB context. And generate constructor with options. Here we have to add another property, DB set, say books table. This I'll give name as books. The name we have provided here, this will be created as a table in our SQL Server, and all the columns will be referred from this books model. So for this entity framework code tools we will use for all this process. If you go to the Solution Explorer, here you can see our packages, entity framework code tools. This is the one responsible to move all our DB and models to the SQL Server. Here we can see the documentation. Go to this help doc. Here we have all the commands which we need to use to process the migration. For that, add migration, where this will initialize the connection, and the update database, where we can push all our DB and DB entities like models to the database. So this will create the database and tables. Okay. To remove the migration, here we have the command called remove migration. So you can refer the documentation which is available inside your packages, and expand the tools under tools documents. So you can refer this one. Let me go to the app settings.json. Here we need to add the connection string to communicate with the DB. For that, let me create connection strings. Here we have to provide the name for connection string. Let me give it as default connection. We have to provide server, then database name. Here, if you are using Windows authentication for your SQL Server, then you need to use integrated security as true. If you are using server authentication, then you don't need to use this. You can provide username, password of your SQL Server. Then I need to encrypt my connection string. For that, I'm going to use encrypt as true. Then I'm going to use trust server certificate as true. Whenever you are using HTTPS for your deployment, you need to add this trust certificate. Whenever you are using HTTPS to deploy your application, you need to use trust server certificate as true. Okay, so our connection string has been added. Now we need to register this default connection inside our program.cs for the dependency. Let me go here. Here we can add builder.services.add a DB context. Here we have to provide the DB context name, that is my app DB context. Inside this we have to pause options. I'm going to use SQL Server. Here we need to provide the connection string. For that, here I can use builder.configuration.get connection string to read the connection string from my app settings.json. To read the connection string from my app settings.json, this is the connection string name which I have to provide here. Now we are ready to communicate with our DB server. If you see in our solution explorer, we don't have any migrations folder here. Once we have completed our migrations, we can see here folder called migrations. All the migrations will be stored in that folder. Even app settings.json, we have to give server name and database name. For that, let me go to my DB server. This is my server name. Let me copy from here and I can paste it to my server. And this is my SQL instance. I'm going to use local server. Database name, I'm going to create a new DB here. Let me make it as demo. This is the database I'm going to create now by using Entity Framework Code tools. If you see, we don't have any DB called demo. Let me go to the package manager console now. Here I'm going to write command add migration initial. This is the migration name. So each time whenever you are doing any migration, you need to provide the migration name. Enter here. Build file. Let me go back and build the solution. Okay, so it's a display name. It's a display name. This is the error it's coming. Let me change it. Go to the package manager console again. Let me run the add migration initial. This time we don't have any errors. Now if you see inside our solution explorer, the migrations folder has been created and the version details and all everything available. But if you see in our SQL DB server, this DB has been not yet created. For that we need to add one more command, update database. This is responsible to push this migration to our SQL Server. Let me enter here. This time our migration has been done. Let me go to my DB server, refresh here, expand the databases. Demo database has been created. If you expand this, there is a table called books, which is added in our model here. Also, there is a table called migration history. Let me open this table and see what are all the records available here. So there is a version name which is provided as initial, and the data has been, and this has been added for tracking purpose. Now we have completed all our project setup. Now we can go ahead and we can create our Razor pages. Let me go to the pages here, add folder, it's a book. Inside this, first I want to display list of books available in the database. Let me create a Razor page. It's a empty Razor page. Add, I can make it as index. Let me add. Here we can see two files. One is index.cs.html and index.cs.html.cs file. In this index.cs.html, we can design all our view, and the cs.html.cs, so we can write all our business logics to display the data. Now let me get into the index.cs.html.cs page. First we will complete our business logic, then we will create the view. To read the data from the database, we need app.db context. For that, I am going to initialize my DB context here, private read only. It's my app.db context. I'll make it as context. Select this, go to the quick actions, generate constructor for this. Now we can communicate with our DB. When the index page is called at the first time, the get method will be called. Here we are going to read our books. Let me go here. Before this, let me declare my books property. Here I'll get the list of books. For that, I'll make it as list of books here. And I'll make it this as books. Here, let me go and read the books from DB. Now here I can read list of books. I'll make this method as asynchronous. Let me change it to async. Here task I'll add, and also this method name I can change, get async method. So now we will get the list of books from this. And also here we need to use await, since we are using as asynchronous method. Let me go to the solution explorer. Here we will create one av item, pages, shared, layout. Let me go to this. Let me copy here. I'll add one more nav item. This I'll make it as books, and it will be called default from book folder. The index page will be called. Let me enable debug point here, and we will try to read the data from our DB. Let me run in debug mode. Let me click on books. It's hitting our breakpoint. Let me go here. Here we don't have books. Go back and we will design the UI here. Go to the index. Let me add title here. For that we will use view data. Here I can pass key as title. Let me give the name as book list. First, to create a book, I will provide the one button. Let me make it as one anchor tag here. This goes to the create page. I can give it as create. So we need to create this page. You can give class here. This I'll give margin bottom 2 and I'll give the title as create new book. This is my button. Then I'm going to create one div here. I'll give the bootstrap class, card and shadow. I'm going to display my book list on top of a card. Then I'm going to use class here, card header. Inside this I'll display my title. So instead of typing the header here, so I'm going to reuse this view data as same book list. Then I can go for another div where I can display the card body here. Inside the card body I'm going to create one table. Let me create bootstrap styles for this table. Here I can use table row and table header. I'm going to use helper class, HTML helper class here. Display name 4. I can use model to display the labels also. Let me call my model here. Model dot books ID books. Actually here we can get the ID here. I want to display only the header here. Let me duplicate this. Okay, then book title, book description and author. So we have done the header part. Now not, let me validate it if model is not null. So inside model we have the books table, not null, and if model dot books dot any. So if we have any records, then we need to display here, else I can add default text here. Let me write first this part. Here we will get the list of books. For that I can use for each loop here. This data comes from model dot books. Instead of book we can make it as it's a book. Here I'm going to create td. Here I can use again HTML helper class, display name. Instead of display name, display for. Here we need display name, here we need display for. We can use model id, say book.id. Before this I need to add table row. Then book title, the next td we need to add one more table header for I want to display the action buttons here. Let me go back here and I can add those buttons also. I'll add one anchor tag, Asp page, where it should go to the edit page, and route we have to provide here. I can provide book.id here, class, say edit. Let me duplicate this. In this case it has to go to delete. Here also we have to pass the id. Let me delete this. So these methods we need to create, and these pages also we have not yet created. For now we are working with index page, and we are going to create new pages for create, edit and delete. If we don't have any data, if this model is contains null, or if it doesn't have any data, then we need to make a row here. I'll span 5 because here we have 5 columns, 4 plus 1. I'm making as a single column. Here I'll display the custom message where we don't have books, no books are available at the moment. So this is the text I'm going to display when there are no products. This is the custom message we are going to display to the user when we don't have any data in the DB. Let me run this project. Click on books. Here there is a button to create a new book, and this is the card where it is showing the header, book list, and the columns are showing here. Currently we don't have any products, that's why we are showing this custom message. Let me align few things here. After this button we need some space here. Let me go back. Okay, instead of margin bottom 2, I'll make it as 3. Let me reload. Okay, here also we need to make this as h3 so that it will display clear. This is clear now, but for this also margin top I'll add 2. Let me see now. Yeah, now it's clear. I think this is not required now. Okay, so for now we have completed this part where it's displaying the products. Let me add one product from the backend and let us see how it will display. Go to the backend, open the books table. Currently we don't have any records in this table. Let me add one record. Book title Java. We have added one record from the backend. Let us go to our application, reload the page. Here we can see the data is loaded correctly. Also we need to change few things here. This delete, I need to make a change here. This I'll make it as danger. Okay. So in the next session we are going to add the bootstrap icons for these buttons, and we are going to work on creating a new book. That's it for today. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.